They stalk in the night and drain you of your life. They hide in the shadows or even in plain sight. They're vampires. Not usually my favorite monster when it comes to horror films, but every once in a while I come across a vampire flick with a tale that sticks the landing. Today, we're checking out the 1970 film The Vampire Lovers, directed by Roy Ward Baker, and produced by Hammer Films. Scream Factory has released this movie on Blu-ray before, but today they bring us a brand new 4K scan of the film from the original camera negative, as well as a handful of new supplements to check out. Before we get to our collector's edition release, let's go over the story. The film opens with a narration about vampires, establishing the lore of vampires within our film and how to slay them, whether it's a stake through the heart or straight up decapitation. As we learn about the creatures, we watch as a man comes across and stalks a vampire, eventually defeating it, but only after a close call, making for a fantastic introduction to our story's setting. Starring Ingrid Pitt, Madeline Smith, Peter Cushing, and more, The Vampire Lovers follows the stories surrounding a series of deaths in a small hamlet within 18th century Europe. We watch through a couple of narratives as differing families face the unseen exploitation of their kin at the hands of a vampire in disguise. As the unidentified threat looms over the area, feeding off the locals, the rest of the villagers must do what they can to figure out what's going on. Some villagers are hardcore vampire believers, while others are more skeptical, leading to all sorts of mind games and tricky situations. The script here holds a great story that keeps you thinking, as you wait for the next move to be made from each character in the film. The performances are great, and I'm thankful that most of the characters make sound and reasonable decisions in dealing with an unbelievable, supernatural situation. Knowing what horrors lurk out of sight, it makes for some tense scenes. There isn't a whole lot of blood or gore in this film, however, making it all the more shocking when something violent does happen. I cared enough about the characters to feel invested, and the third act is both thrilling and satisfying. Overall, a great vampire film with a star-studded cast and that awesome feel that Hammer brings to their productions. Check it out for some romantic horror fun, and let me know what you thought of the film in the comments. Until then, we have a physical release from Scream Factory to open up. Released in December 2021, it's packed with supplements new and old, so let's go unbox our Blu-ray. Here we are with our collector's edition release of The Vampire Lovers by Scream Factory. As usual, their collector's version comes with a standard slipcover featuring newly commissioned artwork on the front with all the release information on the back. Underneath is our matching standard Blu-ray case with a single Blu-ray disc inside. As usual, the sleeve for our case is reversible, featuring the original poster work for the film on the opposing side. This is a pretty bare-bones release from a physical standpoint, but we've got a lot of bonus feature content to cover on the disc, so let's go see what Scream Factory has in store. Scream Factory brings us The Vampire Lovers with a new 4K scan. The film looks great visually, and is presented alongside several audio track options. Aside from the film audio itself, we have 2 archival commentary tracks, 1 brand new commentary track, and finally, an audio essay read by actress Madeline Smith, and played over the course of the film. I won't go too much into the detail of these tracks since there's so many, but if you're a fan of the film, look forward to the new one with film historians Steve Haberman and Konstantin Nazer, as well as the archival tracks featuring the director, Roy Ward Baker, alongside actress Ingrid Pitt and screenwriter Tudor Gates on one, and film historians Marcus Hearn and Jonathan Rigby on the other. I will highlight the audio essay track, however, since it has a very interesting premise, covering the origins of Camilla in writing and lore, and how the character made her way into cinema with films like The Vampire Lovers, as well as others such as Vampire, Dracula's Daughter, and more. A lengthy but interesting way to learn about the female vampire and her history within the storytelling medium of film over the years. Overall, these tracks present a ton of options for those wanting to rewatch the film 4 more times. With our feature presentation aside, we now look at the collection of bonus videos included on our disc. We have a whopping 4 featurette and discussions, as well as interviews, promos, and other supplement content, so buckle in for this doozy of a release. First up is Carnal Crimson, a brand new interview with film historian Kim Newman. A welcoming face as always, Newman's discussion runs just under 20 minutes long as he shares a vast wealth of information covering the Carmilla legend of which The Vampire Lovers is based upon. He talks about Hammer Productions' journey from classy filming to more outgoing styles, with The Vampire Lovers being somewhere in between. The story of the vampiress Carmilla is actually the second most adapted vampire story aside from the famous Dracula. Overall, a great video with Newman, and I always look forward to his engaging discussions and interesting lores. Moving on to our second featurette, we have another discussion video, this time hosted by film historian Jonathan Rigby, titled Fangs for the Memories, Remembering the Vampire Lovers. This bonus runs just under 25 minutes long, and covers the film more closely as a production in contrast to Newman's coverage of the story and legends. Here, Rigby talks about the film from a production standpoint, discussing early formations of what was originally a lesbian vampire exploitation film, molded into something much more intriguing by Hammer Productions. Rigby runs through the various cast of actors and actresses involved, covering a bit of their careers and how they got involved with this film in particular. Our third featurette moves our attention even more toward Hammer films, and is titled New Blood, Hammer Enters the 70s. Running a bit under half an hour, this video showcases various film historians discussing Hammer films as they adapted to changes in the industry during the transition from the 50s and 60s style horror to the 70s and further as film and other media culture began pushing the limits of what they can do with sex, violence, and other exploitation in cinema. The array of historians recount the climate of the film industry at the time and what sort of decisions Hammer had to make in order to continue on, bringing in the vampire lovers as a notable point in the timeline. We go now to our fourth and final featurette for this release, titled Feminine Fantastique, Resurrecting the Vampire Lovers. This video runs just under 10 minutes long, and follows various film critics, historians, and more as they talk about the Vampire Lovers being a quintessential lesbian vampire film. They discuss the film as a Hammer production, and how it's one of the more well-known and loved adaptations of the original Carmilla novella. As we leave our collection of featurettes, we move into a pair of interviews with one of the lead actresses in the film, Madeline Smith. Our first video is titled To Love a Vampire, and is a newly recorded introduction with the actress. Smith's interview runs just over 15 minutes long, as she recalls her experience in joining Hammer for the production, and how she landed her role as Emma in the film. She shares a variety of stories from her time on set, looking back at her role with such fond memories. Smith reminisces about the film with nostalgia, even going as far as saying this is her favorite production she's ever been a part of. On top of Madeline Smith's introduction video, we also get an archival interview with her, adding another 20 minutes of footage to watch, titled Madeline Smith, Vampire Lover. This interview involves additional dives into the film industry and the production of The Vampire Lovers as a movie. She continues to share stories from her experiences as an actress, further cementing this film as an integral part of her career. Finally, we can round out our release with a small collection of quicker bonus video and audio content. We have a short clip from the web series Trailers from Hell, in which they discuss movie trailers and in this case, the trailer for The Vampire Lovers. On top of that, we have a 12-minute video using stills and photos from the film as Ingrid Pitt voices over, reading aloud the original Carmilla novel of which the movie is based on. Furthermore, we get the usual fare of a theatrical trailer, a radio spot, and an image gallery hosting over 200 photos, stills, lobby cards, and more. We top it all off with the deleted scene, though I'm fairly certain the scene is already built into our copy of the film, so I didn't even notice anything from it that I haven't before. With that said, however, we've completed our review of Scream Factory's release of The Vampire Lovers. Despite my lack of taste for the blood-sucking creatures, this film was quite enjoyable, and one I wouldn't mind revisiting every so often. If you're already a fan of the release, then there's an insane amount of content for you to dig through. Otherwise, thanks so much for joining me here on Pajama Theater. As always, like this video and subscribe to support the channel, and follow me on Instagram for more Blu-ray goodness. Until then, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.